Hi there. Thank you so much for coming into my wedding planning company. Today, I would first like to congratulate you, bride-to-be, on getting this far and just, getting married is the most special day of your life. And so I'm very excited that you've chosen my agency to help you make your dream wedding a reality. Now, in this initial interview, I would just like to sort of get to know you and get to know what this wedding will look like, just sort of the basic questions. Obviously, I'm going to ask you things, and if you haven't thought about them, that's fine. I just sort of, like to get a sense of what you're picturing and, what we can do to help you make that a reality. Now, in general, I like to first get an idea of what you would like and then talk about budget instead of the other way around. I find that that's, a better way to construct the day that you want as opposed to a day that's, constrained by all these budgetary limits. So that's sort of how I'm going to conduct this interview. And I hope that you can work with me to really make this day a reality. So, firstly, I'd like to give you this list of services that we provide. We provide day of consulting. We provide consulting that goes from now until your wedding. We have a number of different services that we can provide. And there, all the payment plans and costs are listed on that sheet. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take a look at that a little bit later. But for now, I'm just going to ask you some basic questions about what this wedding is going to look like. And like I said, if you haven't thought about any of these, it's totally fine. So let's just get started. Firstly, have you picked a day yet? June 21st. Okay. And that's a Sunday? Great, okay. Okay, and so that's also a summer wedding, which is, in my opinion, the most fun, because you have the most time of day to work with. Have you thought of the time of day that you'd like for the wedding? Morning or afternoon? Okay, you'd like afternoon. Great. Okay. So, I won't say a specific time yet. Okay. Have you thought about the size of the wedding you'd like to have, sort of an estimate number of guests? Okay. So you'd like around 50 couples, so around 100 people? Okay. Now, just in terms of what the wedding is going to look like, have you thought about whether you want it to be a very traditional wedding, a very formal wedding, a very casual wedding? Have you thought about that? You want it to be more traditional? Okay, yeah, that's where I am too. Okay, great. Now, have you thought at all about location? Do you have a venue in mind? The actual service? Okay. Well, there are a number of different options. Do you want it to be indoors or outdoors, the actual ceremony? You want it to be indoors, okay. Okay. Now, we'll talk about religious preference in a bit, but are you affiliated religiously? You're Christian, okay. So that means that having it in a church, is that something you'd be interested in? Okay. Okay, definitely something to consider. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. For the reception, do you know if you want it to be indoors or outdoors? You want it to be outdoors, okay. You said Okay, your parents have a big lawn. Okay, so you'd maybe like this to be, sort of outdoors under a tent in your parents' backyard. Okay, that'll be really pretty. Okay, and then for the rehearsal dinner, have you picked a location? No? Okay. Would you like it to be at a restaurant? Okay, so some kind of restaurant, okay. You're not sure what kind of restaurant yet? Okay. Well, I think that may also depend on what kind of wedding we really come up with here, so we can talk about that a little bit more later. Yeah, great, okay. As I mentioned, religious preference, you said you're Christian. Is your fiance also Christian? Okay, and would you like this to be a religious ceremony? Yes, okay. So you're going to want a priest as an officiant? Okay. Do either of you have a family priest that you are already in contact with? Yes, okay. Okay, great. Okay. And he's affiliated with which church, so I can just get in touch with him? Okay. And that's on, okay, Mulberry Street. Okay, great. So, now that the sort of logistics are out of the way, here comes the fun part. One other question. Are you and the groom going to be hosting this? Are your parents going to be hosting this? Your parents are going to be, okay. So your mother and father, and they're together? They're not divorced? Okay. 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 Alright, so have you thought about a color scheme yet? You haven't? Okay, you have a couple in mind then. Alright, well, let's, let me hear the ideas. Okay. Baby blue and cream, that's very pretty. Okay. Baby blue and a yellow? Okay. So you like the baby blue? Okay, and then, okay, mint green and chocolate brown. I like that. It's a little funky, but. Okay, well those will be fun as we create your wedding. Those will be fun to work with. Have you thought about any kind of, theme? Is this going to be, you already told me it was going to be pretty traditional. Okay, well that makes things pretty easy. Now, that's great. So, for catering, for the reception, is this going to be, you're going to have dinner at the reception? Okay, great. And would you like it to be plated or a buffet? Plated, okay. Do you have any idea of a menu? Okay, so that's going to depend on the caterer you work with. I have a number of caterers that I work with pretty regularly, and I can suggest any of them to you. If you're going for a more Italian type of menu, which is what you indicated, there is one restaurant called Bravo, which I would highly recommend. They do a great job catering weddings, and I can set you up with a consultation with their wedding planner. So maybe Italian. Bravo could be an option. Okay. We'll get into that more when we get into budgeting. Have you also thought about a cake? Okay, are you going to want a groom's cake as well? Just the one? Okay, great. Okay. And again, I can recommend a number of bakeries that make wedding cakes. Do you have any idea of flavors that you'd like? Okay, chocolate. Okay. I can help you out and recommend some things when we get into the later part of this consultation. Okay, and will there be an open bar at this reception? Yes, okay. Okay, great. So that's, for catering, that's pretty much all I need to know. For music options for the reception, are you going to want a live band, do you think? A DJ? What are you looking for? Okay. So you'd rather have a live band, okay? Great. Have you thought about, your first dance song at all? I haven't gotten there. Okay. Okay. Well, that's totally fine. Will you want any kind of musical accompaniment at the actual ceremony? Many people have violinists, trumpeters, anything like that. Okay, well that's something we can talk about later. If you don't have any preference, that's something we can definitely talk about. Now for the bridal party, do you have a maid of honor in mind? You do? Okay, and what's her name? Susan, okay. Does your fiancé have a best man in mind? Timothy, okay. Okay, great. Now, on top of that maid of honor, are you going to be having any additional bridesmaids and groomsmen? Okay. So you're both going to have 3 each. There'll be 5 people in each of your parties, including you. Okay, so. And you haven't really figured out exactly who that's going to be yet. Okay. You do have a sister, though, and she'll be okay. Great. Then, are you going to want to have a ring bearer or a flower girl? Both. Okay, are you thinking of I'm assuming a younger child? Okay, great. And you have connections? Okay. Okay, great. So, great. Fantastic. Okay, so that's what I need to know for the bridal party aspect. Obviously the dresses will depend on the color scheme you choose and what your dress looks like. Have you looked for a dress at all yet? You haven't started. Okay. Your mom's gonna help you with that. That's great. Okay, fantastic. When you have picked out a dress, I'd love to see a photograph of it so that we can work together to come up with what dresses we want for the bridesmaids so that they'll coordinate with yours. Okay, great. Have you thought about flower arrangements at all? No? Okay, that's no problem. Again, I can recommend a number of florists that I work with pretty regularly. Generally, well, I can get into flower specifications a little bit later. There are a couple of flowers that will really work well with the color scheme you're thinking of, but I can, set you up with a consultation with a florist who can tell you more about those options. Great, okay. Have you thought about invitations at all yet? invitations are going to have to go out pretty soon once we get the venue set up. And especially if you're going to be planning on having this wedding in June, that is going to be something that we're going to have to do pretty quickly, and that's totally fine. But yeah, so that's something that we'll have to work on pretty quickly here. Have you thought about wedding favors at all? Okay, that's something you've always. Okay, so that's a really nice idea. I like the keychain idea. Okay. Why not first? Okay. Great. Okay. Now, okay, perfect. Have you thought about photography at all yet? Okay, are you going to want photography at the wedding, I'm assuming? Okay, professional photographer. And are you going to want any kind of engagement photos before the actual ceremony? Okay. And those we can even include in your invitations if we get them done quickly. Great, okay. And then videography, you're not going to want, okay, that's no problem. Now, I don't do honeymoon consultations myself, but if you would like to plan one with a professional, I can recommend a number of travel agents that will help you plan a honeymoon. Okay, you're definitely planning on taking one? Okay, great. Okay. So, what is the location that you're hoping for? Something tropical. Great. Well, I can set you up with a great travel agent I work with all the time. Her name is Sarah, and she is fantastic, so I can definitely help you out there. Great. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all I need to know from you right now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a chance to look over that sheet of services while I put all this information into my database. And after I have done that, we can begin talking about a budget range. Okay, great. Okay. So again, feel free to look over that list of services while I fill out this database. Okay. fantastic. The one thing I forgot to ask about, have you guys given any consideration to your rings? Okay. So you'd like gold bands. Great, okay. Well, you want them to be engraved? Yes, okay. Okay, so let me just do that. Okay, great. So now that I've gotten some ideas here, I'd love to move into the budgeting portion of this this piece. So a lot of these numbers are going to depend on the type of locations we get, things like that. But in general, what is your estimated budget? $35,000. Okay, so that's pretty low, and that's going to make this a little bit easier in terms of making all of your dreams a reality. And that includes rings, rehearsal dinner, and honeymoon. Perfect. Okay, great. Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to estimate all of these numbers at. And you can edit these as you see necessary. Okay. Apparel, we're going to estimate at $2,100. That's going to include your dress, your groom's tux rental, and dresses for the entire wedding party. Okay, you want that to be a little bit higher. Okay, so let's put that up there. Okay, so 3,500 is more appropriate. Okay, great. Flowers, we're gonna estimate at about 1,000. Does that sound good? Great. Okay. Photography, including engagement photos, I'm gonna estimate that at around 1,600. Okay. Okay, great. Stationery. With all the invitations, thank you cards, and are you hoping to include menu and save the date cards? Okay, great. I'm gonna place that at around 1,000. If you want to spend a nice number on each of your guests and have some keepsakes as well, and that's also going to include any kind of guest book you'd like to include. Yeah, great. For the rings, I'm going to estimate around $1,600, $800 per ring. With an engravement is a pretty low estimate. We can work with you to bring that down to around that number. Great. Ceremony, I'm going to estimate at around $1,000. That's going to include floral arrangements for the actual ceremony, rental of the actual church, and then the priest officiant. Okay. The rehearsal dinner, I'm going to estimate at around $2,800. Great. Okay. The honeymoon will plan around 3,004. Sound good? Okay, great. The reception, I'm gonna plan about, including a live band, photography, dinner, I'm gonna plan around $16,000 for that. That's gonna be the most expensive part of your night by far. Does that sound around right? Okay, great. And then for favors and gifts, I'm gonna plan around 1,000? Okay. And then, yeah, so those numbers seem about right. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to go back to my information and set you up with some consultations and come put together a more complete and more thorough budget for you. So that's going to be on me. Do you have any questions so far? No? Great. Okay. Well, I think that we're pretty much done with our consultation today. I'd like to thank you so much for coming in and telling me about this special day you'd like. And I look forward to setting up a second meeting with you where we can go through this budget that I'll put together for you and talk about some options for catering and location and some other things that I'll put together for you. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed meeting you, and I look forward to also meeting your fiancé. Thank you.